So the while loop is the other major looping construct in R, and the basic idea is that the while takes a logical expression and will execute the loop based on the value of that logical expression. So for example, I've got a very simple loop here. It initializes a count variable equal to 0, and then while that count is less than 10, it prints out the count and then increments the count by 1. So as soon as the value of count gets to 10, the loop stops, and then it will go on to the next body of code. So the while loop is useful because it makes things easy to read sometimes. It's very obvious here that this loop is supposed to stop working or stop executing when the value of the count variable is 10 or more. So it makes it a little bit more readable. However, you have to be a little careful with while loops because technically speaking, they are infinite loops and you have to make sure that the condition that stops the loop will actually occur. Otherwise, your program will never finish. And so in this case, it's fairly obvious that the loop will eventually stop executing. But in much more complex pieces of code, it can be hard sometimes to figure out whether the while loop will finish. And so often it's safer to use something like a for loop that has a hard limit on the number of times it can execute. So that's not necessarily saying that you should never use a while loop, but you just have to be careful when you do use them. So you can test multiple conditions in a while loop or in any type of construct like an if statement, for example, by using the logical operators. So here I've got a variable z, which I initialized to the value 5, and the condition for the while loop is basically while z is greater than or equal to 3 and it's less than or equal to 10. So while it's between the values of 3 and 10, then what I'm going to do is going to print the value of z. I'm going to flip a coin, a fair coin. And if the coin is a 1, I'm going to add 1 to my value, and then if it's less than 1, if the coin is equal to 0, or any other value for that matter, I'm going to subtract 1 from z. So this is, I'm generating a little random walk here, and the value of z is going to go up or down depending on my little coin flip here. So here you can see it's a little bit harder to tell when the while loop will finish, because the body of the while loop involves random number generation. So here the z value is going to zigzag up and down until it eventually hits 10 or eventually it hits 3 or something less than 3. And so this may be kind of nice, but you have to be careful that it doesn't go off for too long. So one thing to note on a more technical level is that the conditions when R tests the condition in a kind of a multi-expression condition. Here I've got z greater than or equal to 3 and z less than or equal to 10. The conditions are always evaluated from left to right. So it checks to see if the leftmost condition is true, and then it goes to the next condition. So first it'll check to see if z is greater than or equal to 3. If that's true, then if that happens to be true, it'll go to the next expression. It'll check to see if z is less than or equal to 10. So if those are both true, it goes on to the next into the body of the loop.